After getting married, I found out about my in-laws' debt of $150,000. Somehow, I ended up being the one to pay it off. I thought I'd do it for the sake of the family, but then something struck me. Unforgivable. They had their fun behind my back, and now they want to use me to pay off their debts. That's when I started carrying out the plan. I aim to plunge my husband Jacob and my in-laws into hell, just as they're celebrating that the debt is fully paid off 5 years later. I'm Noura. I lost my mother early and lived with my father, but he passed away a few years ago too. My old friend cheered me up when I was feeling down after becoming alone. It was through her that I met Jacob. I met Jacob while out drinking with my friend after a long time, and we ended up having drinks together. He had just been dumped by his girlfriend at the time, and was venting over drinks. I feel so lonely. It's the worst feeling, he said. My friend, who was all in for some fun, suggested, Noura's single right now, too. Why don't you guys start dating? In a spur of the moment, she made us exchange contact information, and even set up our next date. It was somewhat forced, but she knew Jacob was my type. She's my longtime friend, after all. I was a bit excited about the date with Jacob she set up. To cut a long story short, we had a great time on our first date, more than I could have imagined. We started going out on dates almost every week. How come you broke up with your ex-girlfriend right before we met? I asked him one day. Well, let's not talk about the past. I have you now, Noura. Jacob was kind and fun to talk to. I wondered why his ex-girlfriend had dumped him, but I didn't dwell on it back then. Around 6 months into our relationship, Jacob proposed to me. Of course, I had no reason to say no. I happily chose to become his wife. Nervously, I went to his parents' house to greet them. My in-laws welcomed me warmly. I heard you work at a major corporation. That's impressive. Yes. Are you planning to continue working after marriage? That's the plan. If you both work, you'll have a more comfortable life. That's great. My mill, a homemaker, surprisingly supported my career. I was a bit relieved, as I had thought she would tell me to quit my job and take care of the home. Jacob also agreed to me continuing to work. So, we started our married life without any trouble with my in-laws. We bought a house in my name, and just when we were settling in, Jacob came to me with a serious look and said, "There's something I need to tell you. The truth is, my parents have a debt." What? I had never heard that before. How much? It wasn't much at first, but it kept ballooning as repayments were delayed. I braced myself and asked, "Just tell me. How much is the debt?" "About $150,000. That much. We couldn't pay it off, you know. My parents are living on their pension, and the debt just kept growing." I see. Noura, you mentioned your father's inheritance before we got married, right? How much is it? The conversation was taking an unpleasant turn. Could it be? My suspicion was soon confirmed. Jacob asked, "Can't we use the inheritance you got from your father to pay off my parents' debt?" "Why should I? Especially with our home loan and all. It's going nowhere if we just keep paying little by little." "What about your savings, Jacob?" "I don't have any savings. But before we got married, you said you had savings, remember?" I was just going with the flow, matching what you said. "Truth is, I have zero savings. So, you're the only one who can pay," Jacob argued adamantly. It was quite unreasonable, but indeed, we couldn't just ignore the debt. The problem was, I didn't have $150,000 in savings myself. I only have $100,000 from the inheritance. What about the rest of the money? We have a pretty comfortable life with both of us working, right? And you do a lot of overtime. I want you to use that overtime, pay for the repayment. So, he expected me to use all the money I inherited from my father and my hard-earned money for the repayment. Seeing his attitude, it seemed like there was no other way out for me. Fortunately, with the inheritance and my salary combined, it wasn't an impossible amount to repay. Reluctantly, I agreed to his request. Later, my in-laws came over to our house. "Noura, you're going to pay off the debt. Thank you so much." My mill was in tears with gratitude, and Jacob responded smugly, "Mom, you should thank me too. If I hadn't married Noura, things wouldn't have worked out this well." "Yes, you're right. I always thought she'd make a great deal from the first time we met, but Jacob, you really had an eye for her. My Phil was overjoyed, embracing Jacob. Well done, Jacob. Now we can walk around without worrying about debt collectors. We can finally go out to eat again. Let's get some wine and celebrate. Sure. I watched Jacob and in-laws getting carried away with a look of disbelief. They kept talking about celebrating while they haven't even paid off their own debts. Noticing my dismayed face, Jacob finally scolded them. Hey, Dad, Mom, calm down. It's because you spend money so carelessly that the debt keeps growing. Really, you're terrible with money and can't even do the math, Jacob said mockingly, and my Mill retorted, annoyed. Well, Jacob, you're the same, aren't you? What? Why me? Because you're all about appearances. Whenever you like a girl, you'd go into debt just to take her on dates or buy her gifts. And then, when your lack of money becomes obvious, you end up getting dumped. Haga. What are you talking about? I've learned from my past mistakes. I married Nora because she doesn't care about spending money. I'm smart, right? Well, that did save us. Haga. I see. So, that's why Jacob kept quiet about why his ex-girlfriend dumped him. Listening to Jacob and his parents' conversation made me feel like I was married for my money. It's as if they're openly praising Jacob for snagging a cash cow for their debt repayment. My Mill continued. Ever since he was young, whenever Jacob likes a girl, he starts spending a lot of money, so it's always obvious. Hearing this, I realized something. He's been withdrawing money from our joint account frequently lately. Could it be? Ignoring my suspicions, Jacob seemed to have an idea. By the way, Nora, you've been transferring money to my parents every month, right? But everyone in my family is bad at managing money, so from now on, please make the repayments directly to the creditor. What? I was baffled by his selfish suggestion, but my in-laws were delighted. That's a great idea. Nora, this is the account number. I was still confused, but my Mill handed me the account number. So, how much can we repay each month? How many years will it take to finish? As if it's someone else's problem, my Mill asked. Despite feeling annoyed, I responded, first, I'll allocate the $100,000 from the inheritance to the debt repayment, leaving us with $50,000 to go. If we transfer about $800 to $900 a month, I think I can finish within 5 years. Well, it can't be helped if it takes that long. This is how I began gradually repaying my in-laws' debt. First, I repaid $100,000 from the inheritance immediately to the creditor. This should ease the collection efforts for a while. But then, I realized something. Jacob was cheating on me behind my back. No wonder his spending became erratic. I can't forgive him for having his fun alone. If that's his plan, then I have my own measures to take. I just need to wait 5 years. For the next 5 years, I took all communications from the creditors, letting Jacob and in-laws continue their usual lives. All for the plan I was working on behind the scenes. I was looking forward to seeing their shocked faces 5 years later. And then, 5 years later, Jacob looked at the bank balance and said, as expected of Nora, you've been making the transfers diligently, and the remaining $50,000 is fully paid off. Yes, that's right. I really appreciate you. And I actually have something important to tell you. What is it? I want to get a divorce. Jacob said it with a serious face. When the money goes, so does the love, right? Actually, there's someone else I want to be with. Once you're gone, she'll move in here. So, you should go live at my parents' place. What do you mean? I snapped back instantly. Wait a minute, why should I have to go live with your parents? My girlfriend doesn't want to be around my parents. Since Dad and Mom are still sloppy with money, it'll be easier for you to manage if you live with them, right? You said you're divorcing me, right? How does it make sense to still expect me to take care of your parents? My parents rely on you completely now. If it's come to this, you should take care of them to the end. Besides, if they get into debt again, it's going to be a hassle for you to repay it. Haga. Jacob had enjoyed an affair in secret and pushed the debt repayment onto me. Not just that, he plans to leave his parents' care to me after the divorce and live with his new woman. Absolutely unforgivable. I wouldn't let it happen. I was so done with Jacob's selfishness. Barely containing my anger, I replied as calmly as I could. I completely agree with the divorce. Is that so? Good that you're an understanding woman. But you're the one who will be leaving. What are you talking about? This is my house. No, it's not. Have you forgotten? When we bought this place, I paid the entire down payment from my savings. And we put it in my name, didn't we? Did we? You said back then, I don't want it in my name because if something happens, I'll be forced to repay the loan. I should have felt more uneasy at that time. If I had realized how hopeless you were from the start, I wouldn't have had to go through all this. Humph, fine. Since you're broke now, I'll graciously let you keep the house. Broke? Yeah, right. You used all the inheritance for repayment, and you've been transferring all your excess salary as well. You have zero savings, don't you? I have savings. What? That's impossible. I just checked your transfer history. Well, you should have noticed then. All the money is in a separate account. At those words, Jacob was momentarily dumbfounded before shouting in panic. Wait, what do you mean by a separate account? He frantically checked the bank balance. Only then did Jacob realize that the account I had been transferring to every month was different from the one owed to the creditors. So, what about my parents' debt? Of course, it's still there. You all left the creditor negotiations to me, so you didn't notice what I was doing. Hearing this, Jacob turned pale. You've been deceiving me all this time. Deceiving? Aren't you the same? What do you mean? You've been cheating on me in secret, haven't you? At those words, Jacob visibly flinched. When did I ever cheat? You know better than I do, don't you? I noticed it 5 years ago. 5 years ago. That day, I felt something off in the conversation between you and your mother. You've always started spending more money whenever you liked a girl, right? That's when I noticed your spending had become more erratic. That can't be. Impossible. I had my suspicions, so I observed you carefully, and there were traces of another woman everywhere. Once I was sure you were cheating, I decided to move the money intended for debt repayment into a separate account. It was to secure my living expenses after divorcing you. Jacob was stunned into silence upon hearing the truth. I need to contact Dad and Mom immediately. Jacob's call brought my in-laws rushing to our house. They seemed to already know the situation and came at me furiously. Nora, what do you mean you haven't paid off the debt? My Phil shouted, red-faced with anger, and I responded coolly. Why should I repay the debt of someone who's going to be a stranger to me? And why should I give my salary to a husband who betrayed me? They stranger. Betrayed. What are you talking about? My Phil looked utterly confused. Beside him, I didn't miss the flustered expression on my Mill's face. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? I don't know. No use playing dumb. You're the one who told me about how Jacob spends money whenever he's infatuated with a new woman. You must have noticed his affair, right? That is, Tom. Not only with money, but your moral compass also seems to be quite loose. How rude. I only wish for Jacob's happiness. Jacob's happiness. Right. Trampling over my happiness, making me pay your debts, and wishing for your son's happiness. How selfish you are. Hearing this, my Mill fell silent awkwardly. My Phil then spoke to me apologetically. Nora, I'm truly sorry for what my son has done. Can't you just forgive him? You only moved the money to a separate account out of spite, right? After saying this to me, my Phil scolded Jacob. Why did you cheat on such a good wife like Nora? Apologize sincerely to her, and make her use the money in that separate account to pay off the debt immediately. I sighed to myself. Their true nature hasn't changed at all since 5 years ago. In the end, all they care about is their own debt. No matter how much you apologize, I have no intention of forgiving you. I don't plan to be part of this family anymore. Since he wants to be with his new girlfriend so badly, why don't you leech off her next time? Unable to bear the words, Jacob shouted, I can't let her go through that. Hearing this, I finally lost my patience. So, you can let me do it, but not her. That's because you always listen to everything, but she's stubborn and gets troublesome when she's upset. Yes, I did listen to you too much. I have my regrets too, so from now on, I'll do as I please. First, I'll claim a proper compensation for your affair. And I'll make sure you pay back the $100,000 inheritance I used for your debt. At this, Jacob and my in-laws started panicking. Wait. You know I don't have any savings. I can't pay compensation. That's not my problem. Just like you made me do, ask your affair partner to help with the payments, but I will also claim compensation from her. From her too. She might leave me if you do that. Oh, such sheep love. She didn't have the resolve to face the consequences of getting involved with a married man. Nora, please reconsider. My Phil also joined in. Nora, I'm begging you to. We can't survive if we go back to living in debt. At that, I exaggeratedly shrugged my shoulders. That's right. You're already struggling with the remaining $50,000 debt repayment. So, does that mean I don't have to pay back the $100,000 from the inheritance? Yes, I won't claim it from you. Relieved, he looked at me, and Jacob looked at me with hope. Then, you'll withdraw the compensation claim against me too. If you're giving up on the inheritance, give up on the compensation too. What are you talking about? I'm not giving up on reclaiming the precious inheritance from my father. But you said, I won't claim the $100,000. I won't claim from your parents. Instead, I'll add the $100,000 repayment on top of the compensation I'm claiming from you. You're kidding. You don't have a heart, do you? I could say the same to you. Stealing my father's inheritance and cheating behind my back. That's not what a decent person does. Nora, please. Shut up. I never want to see your face again. From now on, we'll communicate through a lawyer. Bye. I yelled at Jacob and stormed out of the house. I headed straight to the lawyer's office and explained everything. A month later, through the lawyer, I completed the divorce and compensation proceedings, finally severing ties with Jacob and my in-laws. I didn't get the full amount, but I managed to negotiate a significantly higher compensation than usual. Jacob, without savings, ended up in debt along with his parents, but that's a fitting end for them. Thanks to forcefully transferring money to a separate account for the past 5 years, I had saved up quite a bit. With the compensation in hand, I plan to treat myself to some good food and enjoy my hobbies. After refreshing, I feel like I can start new with a fresh mindset.